Okay, so day 12 of the press-up challenge. Today I'm going to be talking about commuting, but first, as always, let's get a few press-ups underway. Okay, the reason I wanted to just speak a bit about commuting is it's just been on my mind for the last few minutes before I started these press-ups, because I read a Jonathan Haidt book, who's I think a pop psychologist, or writes these pop psychology books, and I read this probably about 10-15 years ago, and it was called The Happiness Hypothesis, and it looked at different factors that contributed to happiness, and there's a chapter on it about work, and it said happiness in work doesn't really stem so much from the joy of the work itself. I think that may have been one of the smaller factors, but the main factors that it reported were, one is the amount of autonomy you have, so the freedom to sort of work laterally. In my head, that's how I interpreted it. The opportunities for progression, so the fact that if you work hard you can improve and either be given more opportunities or be promoted. And thirdly, it was the commute to work, and the duration of commute was linked to the amount of happiness people got from their jobs. And I have, for most of my professional life, lived probably 15 minutes from work, which I accept as a real privilege and something which I never took lightly, but I only really understood how significant that was in the last year when I moved out. And now I'm an hour away from my workplace and wholly dependent on a single mode of transport. When I live 15 minutes away, in the summertime I would walk, sometimes I'd get a bike. If I was running late, I could even get a bus or a train. It's great. And here, I'm wholly dependent on the Metropolitan line, which is a single tube or underground or subway line that connects the place I live or the area I live in to the workplace. And that has been pretty tough. I, again, am in currently a relatively lucky position, in the sense that because I'm doing my PhD, I only need to go in a couple of days a week, probably twice. And so that 1 hour commute here and back really only takes up 4 hours of my week. And I am dreading going back 5 days a week from October onwards. And not so much because it'll be 10 hours of commuting. That I can handle, because I can figure out things to do in that time, or make use of that time. It's the unpredictability of that journey that really gets me. And by unpredictability, you know, on one extreme you have train cancellations, or someone jumps on the track and so the train has to stop, and then your whole day is written off. But also the difficulty in planning. So today I have to be in to see a patient at 8:30 in the morning, and you know, I knew from when I lived 15 minutes away, if I left at 8:15, I would no doubt be in work by 8:30. Like, there was no doubt in my mind, right? Unless, touch wood, I, you know, came off my bike or whatever. That's the only real thing. Or if I got stuck on a bus, let's say. But you could always just get off and walk then, and that's the advantage of that. Here, if I left it to the 1 hour that it is most of the time, so the mode duration it takes me to get in, you know, I'm risking sort of like a 10%, let's say, 15%, 10% risk. Let's say a 5-7% risk that I'm going to be 15 minutes later than that because the tube gets cancelled, one gets missed, or for whatever reason there's a 10-15 minute delay. But then there's also this long tail of delays where there's a traffic jam in the tubes in front of it, or for whatever reason it gets cancelled, and then I have to try and catch 2 buses to get in part way through, and I'm stranded somewhere between here and work. And it's that unpredictability that I haven't got a solution for at the moment, because when it's going in for flexible academic stuff, you know, if I'm late, if I can't get in, if it takes me an extra hour, everyone will be fine. But when I have a commitment that there's another person on the other end who's made the equivalent effort to get there, I don't know what to do about that, because I mean, one option is then I leave 2 hours early, but then you can just keep stacking up that pyramid, and it becomes a little bit of risk benefit, right? Like, how much buffer time do you leave so that you don't end up standing there because I guess the other person's delayed, or because you know you didn't need to get there that early, or how much dead time do you have versus the risk of being late and you causing the dead time for somebody else. Don't know the answer to that, but it is pretty frustrating. I do understand how long commutes can affect people's quality of work, because I feel like I'm going through that a little bit at the moment. Anyway, we're up to 55. Now, I know some friends who, in some ways, are really lucky that they can just sleep on public transport, and that converts this sort of downtime or this period of nothingness into something more productive. Sorry, let's just keep counting. That's up to 80 now, 80 press-ups. So it converts it into something more productive. And even if you're not sleeping, when I first moved this far out and had to do these commutes, I thought, okay, let's try and work in some sort of meditation or relaxation or mindfulness practice, but it's so hard. For me at least, I just can't zone out. I'm super conscious that everyone's around you, and you know how much things can just vary. The announcements meaning that you have to pay attention. It's really hard to just zone out and turn off. So I tend to try and do something more productive, whether that's have phone calls, but again, conscious of how annoying that can be for other people. Or probably the best thing is try and just get some work done. If I have stuff I can do on my phone, or you know, on rare occasions even taking out my computer. not ideal because you're never going to be as productive as you are when you're sat working, but it is something that I'm now trying to build into my planning, that if I let's say have an hour's worth of reading to do in a day, or let's say I have to listen to something on audio, I will try and save that for the commuter part of the day. And this may all be really basic, simple stuff for people who've been commuting for a long time, but to me this is all stuff that I'm gradually figuring out over the last year or so. So I think the only sort of way around this I can see, because I don't see my commute getting cut shorter anytime soon, and when it comes to 4 or 5 days a week of this, I know that's going to really grate on my emotional state, and I think planning ahead is super important, and getting into habits I think is really helpful for me to feel like I'm still in control or whatever. And so I think I've got a sort of 6-month notice period when this frequency of travel is going to go up, and I need to have a plan for what I'm going to do, or at least the alternative is just change my mindset and come to terms with the fact that this is how it's going to be and accept that. But I really hope it does not impact on things as emotionally on things as much as it can do. Anyway, that's just what I've been thinking about today. Hopefully let's do this final set now. Great, thanks.